Muller. L. Black Origins of Ancient Rome and Black Roman Emperors. Kutayusha Pazdvchkvmgwertit. Aya Pazdvchkvmkutayusha Pazdv. Kutayusha Pazdvchkzi. Kutayusha Pazdvchkvmg. Wertiusha Pazdvchkvmkutayue. O Pazdvchkvmkutayusha Pazdvs. Chkalskvmkutayusha Pazdvchks. Vmkutayusha Pazdvchkvmk. Ertiusha Pazdvchkvmkutayuik. Pazdvchkvmkutayusha Pazdvt. Chkalskvmkutayusha Pazdvchksi. Vmkutayusha Pazdvchkvmkwe. LTSIPN. LIPRSRWS it 1 equals. Black Origins of Ancient Rome and Black Roman Emperors. Gert Muller. Black Origins of Ancient Rome and Black Roman Emperors. Gert Muller. Copyright symbol 2013 Gert Muller. All rights reserved. No part of this book may be reprinted or reproduced or utilized in any form or by any electronic, mechanical, or other means, now or hereafter invented, including photocopying and recording, or in any information storage or retrieval system, without permission in writing from publishers. Pomegranate Publishing. London Contents. Chapter 1, The Black Element. Amongst the Greek colonizers of South Italy. Chapter 2, The Mysterious Etruscans Roman Forerunners. Chapter 3, The Black Element of the Etruscans Revealed. Chapter 4, Black Origins Revealed. Thruff-Roman Religion. Chapter 5, Flavian Dynasty. Chapter 6, the Antonines and Severans. Conclusion. Chapter 1, The Black Element amongst the Greek colonizers of South Italy. Introduction. The civilization of the Italian peninsula did not begin with Latin-speaking Romans but with groups of settlers coming from the east. One such party of settlers was the mysterious ethnic group known as Etruscans and originated, in part, from Asia Minor. In Anu Mbantu's book Unmistakably Black, Sculpture and Paintings from Ancient Syria and Anatolia we see what many ancient people in Asia Minor looked like. The other eastern element was the ancient Greeks with their Afro-Canaanite and Egyptian-descended leadership. We shall begin by looking at the background of the Greek colonies and the art they produced. Greek colonies in Italy. The origins of Greek civilization on the mainland were the result of Egyptian and Afro-Canaanite trading influence on certain coastal points that later became Mycenaean citadels around 1600 BC. Trade and sea travel were obviously priorities from the beginning for these Mycenaean citadels given their origins. These citadels traded with Italy and Sicily as we discover from a curator in the Cleveland Museum of Art. The quantity and distribution of Mycenaean pottery found in South Italy, Sicily, and Sardinia, dated from the 16th century through the 11th centuries BC, suggests that Bronze Age Greeks had been sailing west from an early period. Euboeans and the West Art, Epic Poetry, and History by Michael Bennett, in Magna Graecia, Greek Art from South Italy. EDMJ Bennett, Mario Iazzo and B.M. White, Hudson Hills 2002 19p. After Mycenaean civilization collapsed at the end of the Bronze Age, life became difficult in Greece. War and trading opportunities prompted Ionian Greeks to migrate to Asia Minor from around 1000 BC. By 500 BC, Greek colonies had spread to North Africa, southern Italy, Sicily, Sardinia, Spain and southern France. The evidence from art strongly suggests that the Egyptian and Afro-Canaanite descended elite Greeks led them to these colonies. Looking at a map of Greece and the Butte of Italy shows that Greek colonies in this part of Italy were inevitable. Figure 1 Map of Greece and Butte of Italy. The Metropolitan Museum of Art explains of this region. The Greek colonies in Sicily and southern Italy, a region known as Magna Graecia, comprised politically independent entities that maintained religious ties and trade links with their mother cities. Up until the mid-6th century BC, Corinth dominated trade in the West. For the most part, it exported Corinthian vases, 06.1021.18, which were often filled with olive oil, in return for grain. Some city-states, such as Syracuse and Selinus in Sicily, erected major temples that rivaled those in the eastern part of Greece. Ancient Greek colonization and trade and their influence on Greek art by Sean Hemingway and Colette Hemingway, in Heilbrunn Timeline of Art History. New York, the Metropolitan Museum of Art, 2000. http://www.metmuseum.org/to/hd/enc/hd_enc.htm. The dialects of Greek that played the major part in this colonization were Achaean, Dorian and Ion. The parts of Italy that were settled were called Apulia, Salento, Campania and Calabria. The first and last were dominated by Achaeans. Salento was mainly Dorian, whilst Campania had Achaean and Dorian areas. In the summary of Magna Graecia, ed. by M.J. Bennett et al., they inform us that the Greek colonization was a watershed historical event that would profoundly influence the ancient Etruscans and Romans. In the Greek cities of Magna Graecia and Sicily we are told that their arrival triggered great cultural changes among the local native communities, by Luca Sergii, Lorena Giannelli and Fausto Longo, Getty Publications 2004 10p. There is widespread agreement that the coming of the Greeks to colonize Italy changed the destiny of Italian civilization. In Black Origins of Ancient Greek Civilization we saw how the Afro-Canaanite influence led to the leading Greeks of later periods having Phoenician ancestry. In the sculptures and paintings of Magna Graecia we can see evidence of the Afro-Canaanite ancestry of the leading Greek citizens. Figure 2am Mask of Zeus occurring on an Atheum wine bowl. The above depiction is from an Atheum column crater, large type of wine bowl. It has a mask of a dark brown face with signs of aging and curly white hair. On the crater is the inscription of Zeus the Savior, making it clear the mask was intended to represent the face of Zeus. Nathia was a town in the region of Apulia, southern Italy, from where the distinctive decorated black slipped pottery. Below is a comic scene from a play by the Greek writer Philix. It is represented on a bell crater using the red figure style. In the scene an old man with a short, white afro and exaggerated African features pulls the arm of a younger man with a short, black afro and exaggerated African features. Given that they are both actors we can only assume that they are wearing masks. The young man is the slave of the old man and they are leaving a party. The scene is comical because it is the servant who has overindulged and has to be persuaded to leave the party by the squire rather than vice versa. Both are shown with light red skin, typical of the red figure style of Greek art. The faces, however, are unambiguously African. The bell crater was made in the city of Paestum around 330 BC. This red figure style of Greek art makes it clear there was not always a direct equation between given complexion and continental appearance, African, European, etc. The exaggeration of facial features serves to mock both the servile and the Greek citizen, in this case perhaps to show the ultimate sameness of the human condition. Figure 3 comic scene from a play shows an old and young man. Both have African features that have been exaggerated in spitting image style. Figure 4 red figure mixing bowl with a Maynard and a satyr 360 BC with similar profile but non-exaggerated. The above representation is also shown in the red figure style on a ceramic mixing B. Owl. In the left is a Maynard and to the right is a satyr. The Maynards were women who followed Dionysius and would sing and dance as part of his retinue. On certain occasions, however, they would take mood-altering substances and would run wild, killing anything in their path. Satyrs were spirits of the wilderness shown as humans with horse ears and tail. They were also part of the god Dionysius' retinue. The human part of them was often imagined to be of African appearance. In the case of the satyr above, he has a similar, but unexaggerated, profile to the actors in figure 3 and has afro hair. Nakedness was seen as a positive thing for men, which is why the satyr is not wearing any clothes. The mixing bowl was made in Apulia around 360 BC. Figure 5 terracotta mold of a comic actor from Taranto. The terracotta mold shown above is from the Apulian city of Taranto and dates back to around 200 BC. Taranto was one of the leading Greek colonies in South Italy. It is thought to depict a comic actor because of the exaggeration of the facial features. Why the exaggeration of African facial features? There are two possibilities. One is that African faces represented a foreign and oppressed type of human who was the subject of fun, similar to the exaggerated features of the blacking up minstrel shows of late 19th century America. Museums that have displayed this piece have unconsciously backed this interpretation by referring to it as a comic actor depicting either a slave or a fat woman. Judging by the facial features, they could only be referring to a black slave. The problem with the first interpretation of an oppressed outsider is the fact that they are not sure themselves whether the actor is intending to depict a slave or not. Furthermore, figure 3 shows a Greek citizen with exaggerated African facial features. Had the citizen been of European appearance, it is those features which would have been exaggerated and not African ones. The presence of citizens of African appearance does not support the first possibility. Also, according to the Greeks themselves, black people from Egypt and Canaan were the first leading members of their society in the 2nd millennium BC. This was followed by another infusion of late Egyptian and Canaanite settlers in the early and mid-1st millennium BC. Half of whom would have been black, see Black Origins of Ancient Greece. Neither they nor their descendants would have been oppressed. The other possibility, which would agree with the above information, is that it is a kind of spitting image, an animated comedy of political satire from the 80s, poking fun at the British establishment by following the old tradition of exaggerating their facial features. This was in a society where many people of African appearance were leading figures, as we have just seen, and thus subject to political satire. Would an ancient Greek playwright have dared to use political satire against the establishment of his day? We read in one source about the playwright Aristophanes. Aristophanes, ca. 448–380 BC, wrote 40 comedies, of which 11 have survived. Aristophanes was famous for caricatures of Greek leaders and stinging attacks on society. He was daring enough to lampoon politicians, generals, and other celebrities sitting in the audience. No subject was off limits to his scornful wit. The Art of Theatre, Then and Now by William Missouri Downs, Lou Ann Wright and Eric Ramsey, Cengage Learning 2011. p. 278. The question of would they has been answered decisively. The second possibility is, therefore, far more likely to be correct. Figure 6. Seated man from Apulia. Holding a scroll, 300–200 BC. Above is a more serious terracotta representation of a seated man of African appearance holding a scroll. Such a representation would befit a scholar, philosopher or some other academic luminary. It was made in northern Apulia around 200 BC. Figure 7. Drinking container showing a young man resisting a crocodile. The above depiction is shown on a drinking container which the Greeks called a riton. It is usually taken as showing a Nilotic scene, but once we understand that black does not necessarily equal foreign, we understand that this is by no means certain. It depicts a young man naked, as was common when depicting Greek men, attacked by a crocodile. At first glance the situation is hopeless because the animal has a hold on his right hand and has gripped his midsection with its claws. Yet instead of passively being overcome, he is shown upright kneeling for leverage while on one foot. It is as if he is about to use the leverage to raise the beast for a back-crunching suplex drop. The move was apparently known to Greco-Roman wrestlers. This young man is also of unambiguous African appearance. Figure 8. Flask in the shape of a crouching man, from Campania, Italy. The above human-shaped flask is in the form of a crouching man of African appearance. He wears what looks like a distinctive hairstyle which, in the present author's mind, suggests foreignness. He has his arms crossed. Everyday objects like containers were often in human form and could be both European and African in appearance. They represented the kind of people that could be met with on streets of Greek cities in Italy amongst both enslaved and free alike. This flask was made in the Campania region of South Italy and dates to about 80 BC. Conclusion. The art of Magna Graecia is a reminder of a potentially confusing characteristic of Greek art. In many artistic depictions there is often no direct equation between the color of the depicted and their continental appearance. People can be shown with black color but of clear European appearance or a pink color with clear African appearance depending on the artistic convention. The art also shows that people of African appearance occurred at all levels of society and were amongst those in leadership, who were the subject of political satire. Many are unaware of the seminal role the ancient Greeks played in stimulating the urbanization process in Italy. Even more are unaware of the obvious African appearance of many Greek citizens at this time, and how it is itself evidence of the black origins of ancient Greek civilization. Chapter 2. The Mysterious Etruscans. Roman Forerunners. Introduction. Who were they? The Etruscan civilization was based between the Tiber and Arno rivers in northern Italy. A wonderful introductory summary was given by the then Italian ambassador to the Netherlands. The Etruscan civilization has left us memorial stones, inscriptions and paintings, but no books or wealth of texts from which Roman law to Livy or Apuleius that characterize Latin Roman culture. For this reason we still cannot say with any certainty whether the Etruscans were really a European people, as currently assumed, who first became visible in a Villanova civilization that had its origins in Italy, or whether they came from Asia Minor, as Herodotus and other historians, ancient and modern, contend. Franco Giordano, Italian ambassador to the Netherlands, forward in Etruscans, Eminent Women, Powerful Men, edited by Patriciel Ulaf, E. F. van Kampen, translated by Michelle Hendricks, W. Books 2011. There is certainly evidence to support the view given by Herodotus of an origin in Asia Minor. Etruscan is a non-Indo-European language which is only related to one language outside Italy. This language is Lemnian, spoken on Lemos until the Athenians, led by Miltiades, conquered the island around 500 BC. The language in the Lemnian texts is closely related to Etruscan. The Etruscans by Patricia S. Ulaf, in Ulaf and van Kampen, 2011, 27p. At the same time, it is clear that the civilization has strong roots in the period at the end of the Bronze Age in Etruria, Ulaf and van Kampen 2011, 11p. It is very likely that an elite element entered Etruria at the time when calamity struck the Aegean in the 12th century BC. There were earthquakes, drought, famine and wars which may have caused the linguistic ancestors of the Etruscans to leave northwest Asia Minor. The Lemnians had been in contact with the Afro-Canaanites to the degree that they appear to have adopted the Phoenician Kabiri as their gods. Black Origins of Ancient Greek Civilization by Muller 2013 p. 89. 91. The Afro-Canaanites were integrated into the upper echelons of the Lemnians. They also had wide-ranging maritime contacts. Only they, amongst the Lemnians, would have had detailed knowledge of the Italian peninsula needed to make the migration to Etruria when destabilization came to the Aegean. At present our best conclusion would be that the black element among the Etruscans originated among the immigrants from Asia Minor, where a black pre-Indo-European population has been shown. See unmistakably black sculpture and paintings from Anatolia and Syria by Anu Mbantu, 2013. The Origins of Etruscan Civilization. By 900 BC an urban culture was developing amongst the people of Etruria. This was before the foundation of Rome. The later powerful cities of the Etruscan civilization were derived from early Iron Age villages in southern Etruria like Veii, Volsci and Tarquinia. Etruscan Civilization, A Cultural History by Sybil Haynes, Getty Publications 2005 2p. The remains of circular and oval huts have been found in these villages. Figure 9 map showing Etruria and some surrounding territories. By 700 BC the first Etruscan inscriptions were being written in a script derived from that of Euboean Greeks. This script was to influence the surrounding Italic peoples, Haynes 2005 1p. They were surrounded by Indo-European speaking peoples of the Italic subgroup. They included the Latini to the south, the Faliscans and Sabines to the southeast, the Umbrians to the west, and the Ligurians to the north. The earliest Etruscan aristocracy by Gilda Bartolini, in Ulaf and van Kampen 2011 52p. In the map above, Rome can be seen on the southern border of Etruria and Latini territory to the south. The Orientalizing period. The Orientalizing period of Etruria is generally given as the stage between 725 BC and 575 BC, but Greek and Phoenician influence on the Etruscans goes back to the late 9th century. Pottery from both groups has been found in archaeological contexts from this time. They were attracted to this coast by rich deposits of metal ores. In the 7th century there is evidence from Greek literature and Etrurian archaeology that Greek settlers joined Etruscan communities and brought about a significant transferal of skills. Greek pottery influenced Etruscan pottery in clay processing, use of the fast wheel and using closed kilns to achieve higher temperatures. Haynes 2005 52p. Etruscan bronze working was influenced by Greek and Phoenician ideas, and lead to Etruscan bronzes being exported. The growing of wine and olives for oil was introduced to Etruria. Etruscans adopted Greek writing in this period. The influence transformed Etruscan communities by expanding their economies. Exports grew because of the improved and new products, while imports grew to satisfy the demand of refined tastes that come with growing wealth. Etruscans were now developing a more powerful maritime industry to enable exporting to flourish. The aristocracy became more powerful and social polarization became more evident. Burials of the wealthy show inscriptions on beautifully made bronze and iron objects and fine pottery. The influence of Etruria also started to be felt in the rest of the peninsula. A commander from Tarquin in Etruria, who had a Greek father, became king in Rome. His influential Etruscan wife became queen. They founded the Tarquinian dynasty. The expanding power of Etruria could also be felt in the Faliscan-speaking region to the east became Etruscanized. History, Land and People by Mario Torelli, in Etruscan Life and Afterlife, a handbook of Etruscan studies edited by Larissa Bonfant, Wayne State University Press 1986 52p. Etruscan Heyday. By the 6th century BC, the city-states of southern Etruria like Serre and Orfeto and the already mentioned Veii, Volsci and Tarquinia were as developed and splendid as any in the Greek world. We are also told by Luigi Malnati, the Director General of the Ministry of Heritage and Cultural Activities in Italy, that during the 6th and 5th centuries BC, united in a federation of duodecim populi, 12 polities, the Etruscans founded new cities, with planned public spaces. Malnati, in Ululaf and v. Uncampen, 2011, 7p. He also tells us on the same page that the power of the ruling class was evident in their enormous wealth and display of power, in which women also participated, playing a very different role from that of Greek women in the same period. Malnati, in Ululaf and Van Kampen, 2011, 7p. This is an interesting difference between the Etruscans on the one hand and the Greeks and Romans on the other. It is a difference that attracted many women to the study of this civilization in the 1970s. Etruscan art shows women and men on an equal footing when art from the other two civilizations certainly does not. We are also informed by Ululaf that the Etruscans' mastery was evident in everything they created, in their gift to the gods, in metalworking and painting, sculpture and architecture. Ululaf, in Ululaf and Van Kampen, 2011, 11p. In this period Etruscan power reached over Latium into Campania in the south. The effect of the intensive trade between Etruria and Campania had been the growth of urbanization in Latium and the growth of power in the regions surrounding Etruria. This was to result in the eclipsing of Etruscan power. Decline of Etruscan power. Tarquinius Superbus was the last of the Tarquinian kings of Rome. His despotic style of rule led to the revolt leading to the expulsion of the Etruscan family in 509 BC. http://www.britannica.com/object/topic/583670/Tarquin right parenthesis. At the end of the 6th century BC, Italic-speaking Umbro-Sabellian tribes migrated into southern Latium and later into Campania, leading to wars with the Etruscans in Campania. The loss of Etruscan influence in Latium and Campania economically affected Etruria. Throughout the 5th century BC, Greek cities were expanding their commercial activities in the Mediterranean and led to a naval battle between the Sicilian Greek fleet and Etruscan fleet in 474 BC. The Greek fleet won, ending Etruscan naval supremacy in the region. The effects of this decline can be seen in the tomb sizes and quality of grave goods after 450 BC. In the early 4th century BC, the Etruscan cities were gradually absorbed by Roman expansion. Torelli, in Bonfant, 1986-56 p. When Hannibal invaded Italy in the 3rd century BC, some Etruscan cities sent support to Rome, but some supported Hannibal. There is evidence. The famous coin depicting Hannibal as of African appearance was struck by North Etruscan cities allied to the great general. In 45 BC, the Etruscan language died out. Conclusion: Etruscan legacy. The legacy of the Etruscans was inherited by the Romans. A headmaster in the early 20th century summarized this inheritance well when he observed of Rome's history. The facts is that in material civilization the Etruscans were superior to the Romans, and it is hardly too much to say that under them Rome first became a city. Her streets were laid out and paved in the Etruscan style, and a drainage system began to make habitable the marshy ground that lay between E7 hills. Temples were built, one to Diana on the Aventine, and another on the Capitol, which, later dedicated to Jupiter Optimus Maximus, became the Metropolitan Church of Rome. A new bridge carried trade over the Tiber, and Rome's commercial and cultural relations were extended throughout Italy and beyond. Politically too, the Romans had much to learn from their conquerors. The Etruscan king gave them a centralized government and political organization, as well as such familiar symbols of authority as the lictors fasces, the senator's curule chair and purple-bordered toga. These reforms, together with improved military equipment, raised the prestige and increased the influence of Rome amongst her neighbors. Roman Panorama, a background for today by Humphrey Gross Hodge, Cambridge University Press 2012, 1. St. Published 1958. p. 28-29. This extract captures the degree to which the Romans owed the Etruscans, without whom their entrance onto the world stage would have been virtually impossible. The Romans themselves were aware of this, as Gross Hodge reveals. Even the unpopularity of the next and last king of Rome, L. Tarquinius Superbus, could not efface the memory and tradition of the debt which she owed to the Etruscans. Gross Hodge, 2012, 28 p. So who were these mysterious Etruscans whose language appears to have originated in Asia Minor, and who, together with ancient Greece, formed the parental pair of forerunners of ancient Rome. Chapter 3, The Black Element of the Etruscans revealed. Textbook Etruscan art. The Etruscan art common in textbooks would give the impression all Etruscans were Europeans of Mediterranean appearance. A good example would be the two pieces below, which are drinking vessels in the former for lady's head. The skin, eyes and hair, color are Mediterranean European in type. In the right-hand example, however, there has been an attempt to curl the black hair, like in some Greek sculptures. The Greeks had in their midst a socially dominant black population of Egyptian and Afro-Canaanite descent who probably formed the models of imitation. It raises the question of whether there was also a socially dominant black population amongst the Etruscans who were the models of imitation. Figure 10. Two liquid containers with a base shaped as a woman's head. Figure 11. An Etruscan man with unambiguous features sits with a vase. The sculpture above of a seated Etruscan man wearing a half-arm-sleeved top and a hat gives the impression of the common man rather than the aristocracy. He clasps a jug of a drink of some kind. He is unambiguously black. Figure 12. Sarcophagus of Etruscan aristocrat with inscription. Figure 13. Detail of sarcophagus of an Etruscan male aristocrat. On this Etruscan sarcophagus shown above there is a three-dimensional image of the deceased sculpted into the cover. The 3D image lies slightly on its left side with the head and upper torso lying on a giant pillow. This type of Etruscan tomb is a work of remarkable originality considering it is based on second-hand Egyptian influence. They have taken the concept of the Egyptian depicting sarcophagus and have moved it to the next stage. An Etruscan inscription is visible in figure 12 beneath, which follows a scene, probably from Greek mythology, as was common in tombs. In figure 13 the face clearly shows facial features of African appearance and hair which is, at the very least, curly. It shows that this appearance occurred in all levels of Etruscan society. Below is an urn containing the ashes of an Etruscan male aristocrat. The design on the sarcophagus is not a fighting scene from mythology but a large flower surrounded by smaller ones. His face has features reminiscent of semi-Moorish individuals. Figure 14. Sarcophagus of Etruscan male aristocrat. Figure 15. Detail of face shows semi-Moorish appearance. Figure 16. Terracotta head of an Etruscan lady, 4. Th. 22. ND. Century BC. Figure 17. Terracotta head of an Etruscan lady, 4. Th. -2. ND. Century BC. Figures 16 and 17 are votive offerings of heads to a temple by Etruscan patrons. When wealthy people were ill they would offer a representation of the affected body part. If the whole body was affected the head would be given to the temple in the hope that the god would heal them. These examples were made of terracotta. Figures 16 and 17 are of obvious African appearance. Both appear to have wavy rather than African hair. This interesting mix of features can be seen in populations that have undergone several generations of the mixing of two different continental types like in Brazil. Both are from late in the day of Etruscan history. Figure 18. Stone head of an Etruscan lady, 4. Th. -2. ND. Century BC. Figure 18 is also a votive offering representing an Etruscan lady of the 4. Th. -2. ND. Century BC. This head differs from the previous two in that it appears to be coming out of solid stone. The hair is very curly and the face is reminiscent of semi-Moorish individuals. Figure 19 Stone head of an Etruscan child. Figure 19 is the stone head of an Etruscan child. The facial features and hair appear semi-Moorish. Figure 20 Gypsum statue of an Etruscan lady, 570 to 560 BC. Figure 21 An Etruscan man kneels before two men. Figure 22 An Etruscan black figure vase with a man on a horse. Figures 21 and 22 are in a style called black figure. It does not necessarily represent the color of the individual's being depicted. In the former, the kneeling man is probably an initiate. The men in cloaks are likely to be priests. The kneeling man is naked. In various cultures, some initiations. In the latter, a black figure sits on a horse holding what looks like a knife. The horse, the plants and everything else in the picture is shown black. This is how we know the color is not literal. There are, however, other colored depictions of Etruscans where the colors are more realistic. We have seen the faces and hair types. Now we shall see their complexions. In Figure 23, two Etruscan men escort a distinguished-looking lady on a dark horse. The man ahead leads the horse by rein, whilst the man behind follows with a spear in each. The men and the horse are painted in the same dark brown color, without the usual reddish tinge given to men's color in Etruscan art. One man has curly hair while the other has very curly hair. Both men are naked. Here this is not a sign of lowly status, as such men would not be allowed to bear arms. This painting dates from the 5th century BC. Figure 23 Two Etruscan men escorting a lady on a horse. Figure 24 Scene from the Bacchantes tomb in Tarquinia. The scene above is from the tomb of the Bacchantes in the ancient Etruscan city of Tarquinia. It dates to about 510 BC and appears to show agricultural operations. One man throws seed with one hand while the other hand reaches into the seed bag. The second man walks away from the first. Both are an African brown with a hint of red. Their hair also is short and looks African. Figure 25 Tomb of Francois shows black and white Etruscan males. Figure 25 depicts the occupant of the tomb standing next to a young male who is about to release a swallow as part of a divination exercise known as augury, predicting the future by observing the flight of a bird. The tomb mural shows black and white Etruscan males. The argument that white and dark complexions were conventions for females and males respectively is difficult to apply here. This fresco is from the famous Francois tomb, named after its discoverer, located in the ancient Etruscan city of Volsci. It dates from the 4th to the 3rd centuries BC. Figure 26 Scene of Etruscans with African and European complexions, 520 BC. Figure 26 is a joyous scene from the tomb of lionesses in Tarquinia dating back to 520 BC. The tomb is named after the supposed lionesses which can be seen in the top right of the picture. Two men of dark complexion hold a large ceramic drinking container for a banquet. To their right are two young-looking figures of reddish-brown and white complexions which have been interpreted as a boy and a girl using the Etruscan convention. The young man is naked but the young woman wears a see-through dress. The young man's hair appears to have been dyed blonde. It has been said that they are dancing, but the young man might have been rushing to fill the jug he is holding. Perhaps he is a waiter. Perhaps the young woman is also rushing to perform a duty, there is a jug in the corner to which she is heading which cannot be seen in the picture. Conclusion, the last word in Etruscan art. It is said by the academics that in Etruscan art white complexion represents women and reddish-brown complexion represents men. While there is some truth to this convention, no one in the world of Etruscan studies has sought to explain the origins of such a canon. Furthermore, no one has sought to explain the cases where two males are portrayed and one is given a white complexion while the other is given a reddish-brown complexion approximating that of the average African. Muller in black. Origins of ancient Greek civilization explained the origins of the convention as lying in the period of settlement in Greece of Egyptians and Afro-Canaanites who came in commercial and military capacity. The majority of newcomers were men, who went on to take local wives. The memory of the darkest complexion representing a man and the palest complexion representing a woman probably has its origins in this history. Etruscan art was significantly influenced by Greek art and may have adopted a variant of this convention. The colors, nonetheless, represented real complexions that existed in Italy at this time. Chapter 4, Black Origins Revealed Through Roman Religion. Introduction. We would expect that the black origins of Roman civilization would have left an indelible mark on religion, given its conservative nature. The way in which the gods were sometimes depicted shows that they were once thought of as black. The Roman god Neptune was shown as a Moor, unmistakably black. Sculpture and paintings from the world's first civilizations by Anu Mbantu, Pomegranate Publishing 2013 p. 105. Another area of religion which reveals this origin is the worship of Dionysius, in particular the Maenads and Satyrs. The origins of Dionysius. The god Dionysius was imagined by the Greeks to have Ethiopian and Afro-Canaanite connections. This case is made in the book Eden, the biblical garden discovered in East Africa, by Gert Muller, Pomegranate Publishing 2013 p. 156-7. Muller quotes Diodorus the Sicilian Greek informing us that Osiris and Dionysius are equivalent deities in Egyptian and Greek religion. Diodorus is also cited as giving the Greek account of Dionysius as the grandson of Ctmus, the Phoenician, through his daughter Semele. Zeus impregnated Semele, who gave birth prematurely to Dionysius. He gave the premature baby to Hermes, the god of wisdom, who took it to a cave in Nysa which lay between Phoenicia and the Nile. In the account of Herodotus, the premature baby is taken to Nysa, in Ethiopia, by the king of the gods, sewn up in his thigh. In the account of Diodorus, the god is taken to Nysa, between Phoenicia and the Nile, in the Afro-Canaanite region. In the book Eden we are given a context for this dual association. We are told of the two gods' land of the ancient Egyptians being in Punt and Lebanon. Osiris was also associated with the two holy lands of Punt and Lebanon, Maenads and Satyrs. The black origins of Greco-Roman religion are well revealed by the nature of Dionysius worship, which involved two important classes, Maenads and Satyrs. Encyclopaedia Britannica gives the following definition of the former. Maenad, female follower of the Greek god of wine, Dionysius. The word Maenad comes from the Greek Maenads, meaning mad or demented. During the orgiastic rites of Dionysius, Maenads roamed the mountains and forests, performing frenzied, ecstatic dances, and were believed to be possessed by the god. While under his influence they were supposed to have unusual strength, including the ability to tear animals or people to pieces, the fate met by the mythical hero and poet Orpheus. In Roman religion, Dionysius's counterpart was Bacchus, and his female followers were called Bacchantes. http://www.britannica.com/object/topic/3562622/Maynard. In the retinue of Dionysius were also the satyrs. They are defined as: the satyroi, or satyrs, were rustic fertility daemons, spirits, of the wilderness and countryside. They were close companions of the gods Dionysos, Rhea, Gaia, Hermes and Hephaestus, and mated with the tribes of Nymphae in the mountain wilds. http://www.thea.com/georgikos/satyroi.html. The satyrs get something of a bad press in today's definition sources. The above reference continues below. Satyroi were depicted as animal-like men with the tail of a horse, ascenias, upturned pug noses, reclining hairlines, and erect members. As companions of Dionysos they were usually shown drinking, dancing, playing tambourines and flutes, the instruments of the Bacchic orgy, and sporting with Nymphae. http://www.thea.com/georgikos/satyroi.html. Encyclopaedia Britannica says the following. Satyr and Salnuus, in Greek mythology, creatures of the wild, part man and part beast, who in classical times were closely associated with the god Dionysius. Their Italian counterparts were the fauns, see faunus, satyrs and sileni. Were at first represented as uncouth men, each with a horse's tail and ears and an erect phallus. In the Hellenistic age, they were represented as men having a goat's legs and tail. http://www.britannica.com/object/4/525264/satyr-and-silnus. First of all, these are spirits or daemons, Greek, but not every definition source makes this clear from the beginning. Many definition sources call them creatures. Secondly, they are described out of context. They are called uncouth or animal-like. Men with horse's tail and ears and upturned pug noses. Anyone appreciating their fertility aspect will understand that it is natural to associate these spirits with animals associated with fertility or virility. Are stallions and goats associated with virility? It is, therefore, not a mystery why the horse's tail or ears would be part of what is otherwise the depiction of a man. The erect member is also in keeping with the theme of fertility. As for the upturned pug nose, that is an inexact and uncomplimentary way of describing an African feature. We know this because the satyr in Figure 4 has the same profile, in unexaggerated form, as the comic actors in Figure 3. The profile is distinctly European. Why did the satyrs have African features? The present author's theory is that they represent the Aboriginal people of the land, who are now spirits. History teaches us that the last refuge of an Aboriginal people is the forest, the hill, the mountain, or the desert. These places are not the first choice of humans to inhabit and, according to anthropologists, are therefore associated with the spirit world. The Aboriginal people of everywhere in the Old World are the Khoisan type of people who are now currently found only in southern Africa and a small patch of East Africa. When other waves of humans pushed them out of the best places, they resided in the woodlands and hills until they were replaced in those habitats as well. They were then acknowledged as spirits or daemons by the newcomers and those who came after them. These small poison-type people were the models for the sons of Tur in Egyptian religion and were likened by Herodotus to the Pateusai of the Phoenicians. The Pelasgians of Samothrace and Lemos called them the Kabiroi. See Black Origins of Greek Civilization p. 89-91. The Pelasgians and the Etruscans shared the same ancestors. The Greek equivalent of Tur is called Hephaestus and, as we have just seen, the Satyroi were close companions of the gods Hephaestus, Dionysius and Hermes. The Khoisan are also partly X-hyphalic, thus serving as the inspiration of the Satyroi members. Now let us see Roman depictions of the Satyroi. Figure 27, the Strigalis sarcophagus showing scenes from Dionysius worship. Figure 27 shows the Strigalis sarcophagus named after a bronze implement used by Roman athletes. It is made of marble, dates back to the 2nd century AD, and has 3 scenes. On the left can be seen a satyr holding a basket full of grapes. He holds in his right hand the characteristic weapon of the satyr, which is shaped like a hockey stick. In the middle scene a satyr holds up Dionysius while a Maenad plays the tambourine. Figure 28, detail of left scene showing satyr holding basket of grapes. Face is unambiguously African. In these scenes on the sarcophagus, Dionysius, the Maenad and the satyrs are all unambiguously African in their facial features. Some satyrs, particularly in Greek art, are shown with the distinct facial features of the Kabo, which are reminiscent of those of the Batwa, pygmy, type of Africans. See Black Origins of Ancient Greek Civilization p. 87-89. In this case they are given general as opposed to specialized African features. In Figure 29 we can see the diminutive stature of the satyr next T2 Dionysius. Figure 29, detail of central scene of Dionysius, Maenad in the left, and satyr in the lower right corner. Figure 30, detail of satyr in lower right corner. Figure 31 shows the Dionysius sarcophagus, which dates back to the end of the 2nd century AD and is thought to be from Rome. It shows the god in the company of Maenads and satyrs during a Dionysian ritual of the sacrifice of a goat. Figure 31, the Dionysius sarcophagus, Rome 2nd century AD. Figure 32, close-up of satyr's face on sarcophagus. Figure 33, close-up of satyr's face on sarcophagus. Figure 34, close-up of Maenad's face on sarcophagus. Conclusion. Herodotus claimed that the Greek gods came to Greece from Egypt and proceeded to link Osiris with Dionysius, and Amun with Zeus. These parallels are real. Herodotus also claimed the rituals associated with particular cults such as the Thesmophoria in honor of the goddess Demeter were also started by Greeks who had made trips to Africa. Here we see the evidence of black origins in the continental identity of the supernatural human-like figures of these cults, like the nymphs, who were the original Maenads, and the satyrs. This memory of black origins probably came from the Greek settlers of southern Italy, who also spread into some communities of Etruria and Latium. It reflects an influence at the very dawn of Roman civilization. Chapter 5. The Flavian Dynasty. Introduction. When the phrase Black Kings of Rome is mentioned, most people in the know would probably mention Severus Septimius. What few people know is that he was not the first Roman king of black origins. The first such king was probably Tarquinius Priscus, who had an Etruscan mother and a Corinthian father. This was around 550 BC when Rome was still a town. Unexpectedly, the story of black kings of Rome in the days of Latin domination starts not with an African but with a white man named Vespasian. Vespasian was born in Riete in Latium, the power base of Roman Italy. He was the son of a tax collector of equestrian rank, eligible to run for the Senate. He became a colonel in the army before commanding a legion in Germany. When Claudius became emperor, Vespasian was charged with invading Britain in 43 AD, where he fought 30 battles and won them all. He became consul of Africa in 63 AD and was reputed to have governed justly. When Nero became emperor in 66 AD, he became part of the royal court, but during a tour of Greece fell into disfavor when he fell asleep during one of Nero's singing performances. He fled for his life and went underground. He came back to prominence when the Jews revolted in Palestine in 67 AD and a commander was needed who could deal with fortified settlements. Vespasian conquered all of Judea except Jerusalem in 2 campaigns from 67 to 68 AD. Nero died and Galba became emperor. When Galba was murdered by Otho for the throne, Vitellius declared himself emperor and fought Otho for the crown. All this happened in the space of a year. Vespasian first secured the support of the army in Judea, Egypt and Syria. In 69 AD, Vespasian made his move by sending an army to avenge Otho and defeated Vitellius to become the 9th Emperor of Rome. This became known as the Year of the 4 Emperors. Busts of the Flavian emperors. Almost all statues of Vespasian show a man of pronounced European facial features and straight hair. Figure 35, Titus Flavius Sabinus Vespasianus, emperor from 69 to 79 AD. The first clue that black origins are involved is the bust of his son Titus in figure 36, which show a man whose facial features do not stand out from the European average but whose hair is of semi-Moorish appearance. There are 2 possibilities. One is that Vespasian's wife was a European with very curly hair and that she passed on this trait to her son. While this trait is not common, it does occur amongst Europeans. The other possibility is that Vespasian's wife was of black extraction. If the former is true, then there should be no other evidence to suggest that she was black. If the latter is true, we would expect there to be other evidence for her blackness than her son's very curly hair. Figure 36, Titus, son of Vespasian, emperor from 79 to 81 AD. Figure 37, Titus with nose somewhat broader but hair only curly. Figure 38, bust of Titus with very curly hair. Emperors seldom had identical facial features for their busts, but characteristics that the emperor was widely known to have would be reproduced in bust after bust. Figure 38 shows Titus with very curly hair and the same European-like face. Some semi-Moorish individuals have European facial features. If this is the case here, then it does not settle the matter. The first piece of evidence that supports black ancestry is that in some busts of Titus, such as figure 37, show him with a somewhat broader, flatter nose. Given the father's pronounced European features, figure 37 suggests a mother with an even broader, flatter nose and fuller lips. The second piece of evidence involves the person in question, his mother. We are told the following by Suetonius. Vespasian had married Flavia Domitilla, the ex-mistress of Statilius Capella, an African knight from Sabrata. Her father, Flavius Liberalis, a humble quaestus clerk from Frontium, had appeared before a board of arbitration and established her claim to full Roman citizenship, in place of only a Latin one. Vespasian had 3 children by Flavia, namely Titus, Domitian, and Domitilla. Suetonius, The 12 Caesars, translated by Robert Graves, edited by Michael Grant, Penguin Books, this edition 1. St. Published 1979, 2003 p. 282-83. This is interesting because Flavia Domitilla was the ex-mistress of an African knight from the Phoenician town of Sabrata in modern Libya. We know that immigrants are more likely to partner with people of similar origins or appearance to themselves than with those they do not share a similar origin or appearance. We also know that Flavia was born in Italy and had Latin citizenship. Was Flavia an Etruscan? According to the well-known Etruscologist Torelli, many Etruscan cities had aristocracies with both Latin and Etruscan names. He then informs us that Volaterrae, Perusia, Tuscana, Frontium, and Tarquinii provide only Etruscan names, demonstrating the strong resistance of the local aristocratic element. Studies in the Romanization of Italy by Mario Torelli, edited and translated by Helena Fraccia and Maurizio Gualtieri. University of Alberta Press 1995 52 p. This tells us that Flavia's father was from a strongly Etruscan city and that although they had lost their language they had not lost their regional distinctiveness and opposed integration with people from Latium. This also explains why she did not have full Roman citizenship. If she was an Etruscan of black origin, it would also explain why the African knight struck a relationship with her, because they were of the same general appearance. The third piece of evidence is the collection of busts of the women of the Flavian dynasty of which she was matriarch. The present author has not come across a bust that has securely been identified as Flavia Domitilla, but the one that is suspected of being her has the expected curliness of hair. The descendants all had hairstyles that just happened to suit Afro hair. This would make Emperor Titus semi-Moorish like President Barack Obama today. His brother Domitian would appear to have inherited more of his father's appearance because in age, hair and face there is only slight black influence. Emperor Titus Vespasianus. When Vespasian died in 79 AD, Titus became emperor. Titus had participated in his father's Judean campaigns in 67 to 68 AD, and had returned to take Jerusalem in 70 AD. This military experience meant that he was taken seriously. Earlier in his life he was cruel, immoral and extravagant. Many thought he would be a second Nero. On attaining the purple toga, as they called it in Rome, all this changed. When Shakespeare uttered the immortal lines, "Some are born great, others achieve greatness, and others have greatness thrust upon them," he was almost certainly inspired by the following words of the ancient historian Suetonius about the first black emperor, as opposed to king, of Rome. Titus, surnamed like his father, had such winning ways, perhaps inborn, perhaps cultivated subsequently, or conferred on him by fortune, that he became an object of universal love and adoration. Suetonius, 2003, p. 297. He was particularly tolerant of his brother Domitian, who would become the next emperor. Domitian was continuously plotting to replace his brother, but Titus would not have him executed. Titus died of natural causes after 2 years in power, and his brother took over. Emperor Domitian. Needless to say, Domitian's reign was ruthless and his behavior odd. At the beginning of his reign, Domitian would spend hours alone every day doing nothing but catch flies and stabbing them with a needle-sharp pen. Suetonius, 2003, p. 305. Suetonius also shows a good degree of analysis when he looks at the development of Domitian's character during his reign. For a while he governed in an uneven fashion, that is to say, his vices were at first balanced by his virtues. Later, he transformed his virtues into vices too, for I am inclined to believe that this was contrary to his original character. It was lack of funds that made him greedy, and fear of assassination that made him cruel. Suetonius, 2003, p. 305. His virtues were shown earlier in his reign. He had hated bloodshed as a child and banned the sacrifice of oxen. Domitian launched some social innovations. He banned castration, a beneficent act but not a surprising one. He also made sure the resulting massive increase in the price of a product, following prohibition, did not happen by controlling the price of eunuchs. p. 307. We are told he was most conscientious in dispensing justice and introduced tough punishments for jurymen that accepted bribes. He also watched the city magistrates like a hawk to the point where the general standard of honesty and justice rose to an unprecedented level. p. 308. His vices developed steadily. He was strangely extravagant. An example includes when he had a lake built near the Tiber River and surrounded with seats for the purpose of watching enacted full-scale naval battles for his pleasure. He was also strangely cruel. He had a number of senators executed for reasons such as the name given to his slaves or celebrating the birthday of a former emperor who happened to be the senator's uncle. A rebellion took place led by Lucius Antonius Saturninus, governor of Germany, which was successfully defeated. After this his cruelty worsened. When he overspent 1 year he resorted unhesitatingly to every form of extortion. Anyone charged with speaking against the emperor's welfare had his property confiscated. Any claim that a dead man had spoken against the emperor resulted in his heirs being stripped off their property. Any claim that a dead man had named the emperor as his heir would result in the property being seized. p. 312. Suetonius recorded that Domitian was everywhere hated and feared. In 96 AD, after a 15-year reign, Domitian was assassinated by a palace servant. Why the difference? Suetonius mentions that Domitian was sexually abused as a child. p. 303. He does not give it as one of the factors in Domitian becoming a tyrant, and yet it was probably the deciding factor. Fear of assassination was a reality for Titus and Vespasian, and yet they were not cruel because of it. Vespasian was not good with money, so it was always in short supply, but he was not greedy. Childhood trauma often has the effect of creating neurosis that reduces the ability of an adult to cope with otherwise manageable character defects. Impulsiveness, for instance, might be difficult to control for such an individual. The same goes for fear. If given power, then a person with the neurosis becomes unpredictable in their extravagance and actions of self-defense. He also launched some unprovoked military campaigns, which is not surprising given what we have surmised. Figure 39 thought to be Flavia Domitilla the elder, wife of Vespasian. Figure 40 Flavia Domitilla, her daughter. With Vespasian. The bust of Flavia Domitilla the younger, figure 40, looks semi-Moorish in appearance. This is in keeping with the rest of the Evidence of her mother having been black. The wife of Vespasian's eldest son, Titus, was called Marcia Furnula. She was the mother of Julia Titi, Titus' daughter. Furnula's bust can be seen in Figure 41. Figure 41 Bust of Marcia Furnula, wife of Emperor Titus. Judging by her bust, Titus would appear to have chosen a wife of semi-Moorish appearance. Her curly hair is further curled to create a hairstyle of a distinct afro type. This hairstyle was typical of ladies of the Flavian dynasty. The profile view in Figure 42 shows the back part of her head in circular plaits. In Figure 43 she has her plaits in a style so very reminiscent of women in Africa and women of African descent in the diaspora. Furnula's daughter with Titus was Julia Titi, whose profile brooch can be seen in Figure 44. In all representations the curly semi-Moorish hair can be seen near the nape of the neck beneath the super-curled hair. Figure 42 Profile view of Marcia Furnula's hairstyle. Figure 43 Profile view of bust of Marcia Furnula as the goddess Venus. Notice the hair at the nape of the neck. Figure 44 Brooch of Princess Julia Titi, daughter of Emperor Titus. Figure 45 Julia Titi without her plaits. Figure 46 Unidentified Roman lady. The hairstyle dates her to the Flavian period. Conclusion. We can say, with great confidence, that the Flavian dynasty matriarch was an Etruscan of black origin, which would explain the hairstyles worn by her daughters and influenced coiffures across the empire. This is actually one of the ways in which statues of aristocratic ladies are dated to the Flavian period. This also explains the presence of black trays on the busts of Emperor Titus. It is interesting that this evidence has evaded historical researchers in the black community until now. Chapter 6. The Antonines and Severins. Indeed, when I reflect on the matter, Diocletian Augustus, it is quite clear to me that practically no great man has left the world a son of real excellence or value. Historia Augusta, Life of Severus 20:4. Introduction. When the question of whether there were any black Roman emperors is asked, the answer given by those with some historical awareness is Severus Septimius. He was the founder of the Severan dynasty and ruled from 194 AD. This was long after the two Flavian emperors, so he was not the first in Rome. He was not even the first emperor of black origins in his day. We shall explain the events before Septimius came to power to illustrate the point. After the Flavians. After the assassination of Domitian, an elderly man named Nerva was chosen as emperor by the Senate in 96 AD. He chose as his successor a Spanish general named Trajan, who had commanded a legion under Vespasian in the Jewish War. Trajan became emperor in 98 AD, and busts of him show a straight-haired man of European appearance. He had a childless marriage and was known to be a homosexual. He adopted his cousin Hadrian as his successor. Hadrian ruled from 117 AD and also had no heirs for the same reason. Busts of Hadrian show him with curly hair, but the Roman chronicle Historia Augusta specifically says his hair was curled on a comb. Life of Hadrian 26:1. His hair would thus naturally have been straight. http://penelope.chicago.edu/theia/Roman/text/slash/Historia_Augusta/Hadrian/2*. Figure 47 Bust of Emperor Trajan. The Antonines. Hadrian adopted Lucius Aelius Commodus Verus as his successor, but he died. His next adopted successor was Arius Antoninus, on the condition that he adopts Marcus Aurelius, Hadrian's great-nephew, and Lucius Verus, the son of Lucius Aelius Commodus Verus, to be his successors. Antoninus became known as pious for saving many senators who Hadrian intended to have executed. Antoninus became emperor in 138 AD. His father came from Gaul. Busts of Antoninus show him with somewhat curly hair, but we have found nothing else to indicate black origin. We, therefore, conclude he was a curly-haired European. His adopted sons Marcus Aurelius and Lucius Verus became joint Roman emperors in 161 AD. Marcus was seen as the main power and outlived Lucius, who died in 169 AD. Marcus was known for promoting in the army based on merit rather than nobility. He died in 180 AD. Busts of both show them with curly hair. They had Roman parents and grandparents, but we suspect indigenous black origins. We are told of their family history. Lucius himself was born at Rome while his father was praetor. His father's family came mostly from Etruria, his mother's from Faventia. Historia Augusta, Life of Lucius Verus 1, 6. http://penelope.chicago.edu/theia/Lucius_Verus*Verus*Lucius_Verus*. His Etrurian heritage explains his semi-Moorish appearance. On Marcus Aurelius' father's side we learn his great-grandfather came from Succuba in Spain. Historia Augusta, The Life of Marcus Aurelius 1, 4. http://theia/Theia/Marcus_Aurelius/1****. The Dictionary of Greek and Roman Geography Vol. 2, edited by William Smith p. 1072, describes Succubo as a town in Hispania Baetica, in the jurisdiction of Córdoba. This is the part of Spain that is closest to Africa and has the strongest African influence. Figure 48 Emperor Antoninus Pius. Figure 49 Emperor Marcus Aurelius, curlier hair than his adopted father. Figure 50 Another statue of Marcus Aurelius. Figure 51 Co-Emperor Lucius Verus. Figure 52 Another bust of Lucius Verus. After Marcus Aurelius' death in 180 AD, his son Commodus wore the laurel wreath. He was renowned as a gladiator. He reputedly dismissed the honorable and promoted the debauched. He was described as becoming bloodthirsty and despised by the Senate. The army, however, loved him, which is why he lasted that long. Eventually he was assassinated 192 AD. The prefect of Rome, Petrarchus, succeeded him as emperor. Petrarchus was assassinated barely 3 months later. Questions have been raised about the legitimacy of Commodus, but judging by his bust he would appear to have been the son of Marcus Aurelius. Compare his bust with that of Petrarchus. One would imagine, however, that he had more European in him, and his hair was the only Etruscan feature left. Figure 53 Emperor Commodus inherited his father's curly hair and beard. Figure 54 Emperor Petrarchus. Those without Etruscan or African ancestry have European hair. Prelude to Severus. Historia Augusta tells us that after the assassination of Petrarchus 4 different men were declared emperor. It was the year of the 5 emperors. Didius Julianus was declared emperor by the Senate in Rome. Pescennius Niger was declared emperor by the army in the east. Claudius Albinus was declared emperor by the general Severus Septimius and his army in Illyricum before Severus put himself forward. These were the 4 players: Severus and Julianus. Didius Julianus was the first to be declared emperor. His father was from an aristocratic family and his mother was from Dramatum in modern-day Tunisia. Roman mosaics from Tunisia show the indigenous people to have been Moors. See unmistakably black, sculpture and paintings from the world's first civilizations, Chapter 6, Roman Moors in North Africa by Anu Mbantu, Pomegranate Publishing 2013. Living amongst them were European settlers from Italy and the inevitable semi-Moorish population that follows. Busts of Didius Julianus show him looking like a man with an African parent. Julianus acquired the purple toga by the following maneuver. When he arrived at the Senate they would not allow him in, because Petrarch's father-in-law was being prepared for the throne. He then made his way to the praetor's camp, an important strategic point to win military support. By the time of his arrival Petrarch's father-in-law had already reached the camp and was declaring himself emperor. Anyone else might have been put off by this double blow, but Julianus was cunning. He warned the army over the wall not to make emperor anyone who would avenge Petrarchus, which would include Petrarch's uncle. He also had placards outside the praetor's camp, with the message that Commodus' reputation would be restored if he became emperor. The army was pro-Commodus. He was there with members of the military making promises that the army wanted to hear. He was allowed into the camp and declared emperor by the powerful Praetorian Guard. The people, however, were not impressed with Julianus, and as he was led to the Senate to be confirmed as emperor, the populace shouted abuse and threw stones. They also shouted the name of Pescennius Niger, general of the Roman legions in Syria. One of Julianus' first actions in power was to dispatch a team to kill Niger. In response to this, Niger with his Syrian army and Severus with his Illyrian army revolted. He next heard that Severus was fast approaching Rome with an army. Julianus tried everything to get the populace on side, from passing populist laws to trying magic rituals, but nothing worked. The Senate voted to remove Julianus from the throne and replace him with Severus. Julianus took poison and died. Severus and Niger. When Severus arrived he was declared emperor before heading east to face Niger. Battles followed. Niger was wounded and defeated. By the time he was brought to Severus he was dead. What color was Pescennius Niger? He was a native of the central Italian town of Aquinum. It was not an Etruscan town. Niger means black but was of Italian origin. People of this name were not necessarily black, but his father was Annius Fuscus and Fuscus means dark. It seems to be too much of a coincidence that father and son have different appellations indicating a dark complexion. Historia Augusta records that some said that a dark neck might have caused him to be called Niger, but was otherwise very white and ruddy. On the other hand, the oracle at Delphi was asked who was going to win Rome, and it responded, "Best is the dark one, African good, but the worst is the white one." And in this response it was clearly understood that Niger was meant by the dark one, Severus by the African, and Albinus by the white one. 3. Thereupon the curiosity of the questioners was aroused, and they asked who would really win the empire. To this, the priest replied with further verses somewhat as follows: both of the black and the white shall the life-blood be shed all untimely, empire over the world shall be held by the native of Carthage. Historia Augusta, Life of Pescennius Niger 8, 1-3. http://penelope.ashicago.edu/theia/Pescennius_Niger*html. We are also told that Pescennius Niger had a house in Thebes outside of which was a memorial statue with an inscription, which read: Glorious Niger stands here, the dread of the soldiers of Egypt. Faithful ally of Thebes, willing a golden age. Loved by the kings and the nations of earth, and by Rome the all-golden. Dear to the Antonines, aye, dear to the empire too. Black is the surname he bears, and black is the statue we've fashioned. Thus do surname and hue, hero and marble, agree. Niger 12, 4-6. http://theia/Theia/Roman/Text//Roman/Pescennius_Niger*html. Were the people of Thebes correcting the misconception that Niger was very white? Severus Septimius was asked by some of his generals to have this inscription removed ostensibly because it praised Niger. Severus refused. Severus and Albinus. Clodius Albinus was a general in Gaul, modern France, but we are told he was from a noble family of Hadramechum in Africa. His family, presumably on his father's side, traced their ancestry back to certain leading families in Rome, although Severus disputed this. Life of Clodius Albinus 12, 8. It is said he earned the name Albinus because when he was born he was very white and not red like most babies. It is possible he was an albino of mixed racial heritage. Marcus Aurelius, in a letter, is supposed to have said of him a native of Africa, but with little of the African about him. He had the hair of a semimur. Judging by his statues, so this must be a reference to his very white complexion. Severus devised a plot to have Albinus assassinated, but he read the plot and rebelled against Severus. The first armies sent out against Albinus were defeated. When Severus himself headed an army into Gaul, there followed a tough battle in which Albinus was eventually killed. The busts of Didius Julianus, Pescennius Niger and Clodius Albinus are after the type of Marcus Aurelius, Lucius Verus, and Commodus, and not Vespasian, Trajan and Petrarchus. Figure 55. Emperor Didius Julianus had African mother. Figure 56. Coin struck by Emperor Didius Julianus. His name can be read on the edge. Figure 57. Coin of Emperor Pescennius Niger with African features and wavy hair like some Etruscans. Figure 58. Emperor Niger with even more pronounced African features. Figure 59. Emperor Clodius Albinus. Lucius Septimius Severus. Severus Septimius was the ultimate politician, ever the opportunist, a consummate strategist. He was from a privileged background, descended from Roman knights in the Punic city of Leptis Magna. Punic means that it was founded by the Phoenicians, Afro and Euro-Canaanites, from Tyre in the early 1st millennium BC. His father was Getae and his mother Fulvia Pia. It is thought by some that his family may have gained Roman citizenship under Vespasian, Levic, 2007-26 p. Most of his early promotions were under Emperor Marcus Aurelius. He served as quaestor in Boeotia and Sardinia before commanding the 4th Legion in northwest Africa. He was ambitious from the start. His first wife died young. For his second wife he enquired through horoscopes whether there were any women who were predicted to marry a king. He found Julia Domna in Syria. He served as proconsul in Sicily before becoming commander of the army in Germany on the recommendation of Letus, an influential Roman who was to end up as head of the Praetorian Guard. The decisive moment came when he learned that Commodus had been assassinated and Julianus now held the throne in unpopularity. He was elected emperor by the powerful troops in Germany. He gave a large sum of money to each soldier before departing for Rome. Julianus had the Senate declare Severus a public enemy and sent legates to his army with a message from the Senate to desert Severus. Instead he turned it into an opportunity by bribing the legates to address the army in his favor and join him. Julianus sent a team to assassinate Severus, but he avoided them and sent a letter to the Praetorian Guard to desert Julianus or kill him, and the emperor was killed in his palace. The commander was then invited to Rome by the Guard. He did not simply proceed but was very careful. There were still 2 other contenders for the throne lurking. When 100 senators came to welcome him, while he was still at camp, he had them searched before they could address him. Severus then sent a commander with troops to secure Britain, a potential source of support for Claudius Albinus. He also had Niger's children seized. Interceptors were sent to prevent any communications from Pescennius Niger reaching Rome and the Senate. They were successful. Severus had thought ahead and it had paid. When he arrived at Rome he ordered the guard to meet him in only their undergarments while his own guards were armed. He made his way to the Senate and addressed them. He started by giving his reasons for claiming the purple toga and then proposed a law that no emperor could have a senator put to death without first consulting the Senate. This obviously put them at ease. Julianus' friends were arrested and put to death. An army was sent to Africa to prevent Niger advancing through this province and disrupting Rome's grain supply. He then advanced east to defeat Niger before returning to Rome. Shortly thereafter he advanced north to defeat Albinus. Severus had complained, before his advance north, to the Senate about some among their number who supported Albinus. In order to tilt the ancestral playing field in his favor he claimed that Albinus' family had fabricated the noble Italian ancestry and referred to his competitor as this African. The insinuation was that he had a greater claim to the throne than Albinus because of his mother's Italian ancestry. Pick your heroes wisely. After this civil war, as Historia Augusta tells us, countless people were put to death for supporting Albinus. Severus then turned his attention east to the Parthians who had captured Mesopotamia while Rome was in civil war. Of this war at times, newspaper journalist made the following observation. I'm surprised that no one seems to have spotted an obvious Roman parallel for the success of Barack Obama. Or have I missed it? In the 2nd century AD, Lucius Septimius Severus became the first African Roman emperor of Rome. Like Obama, he was of mixed race, his father from Libya, his mother of European descent. He too had an outspoken and determined wife, from Syria. and his first task on coming to the throne in 193 AD was to deal with a military disaster in Iraq, Parthia as it was then known. http://dons_life/11/Obama-html. During the war to retake Mesopotamia, the emperor had Letus executed, apparently because he resented his successes on the battlefield and thought him a future threat. When Rome overcame Parthia, Severus gave his soldiers the right to plunder the capital. He named his eldest son as his heir, and he forbade conversion to Judaism or Christianity on pain of heavy penalty. He defeated the Persians and Arabs in war. Despite his ruthless reputation, he was also seen as an appreciator of efficiency. He is also credited by Historia with building a wall across Britain from sea to sea. This would appear to be the same as Hadrian's wall, so perhaps he repaired rather than built it. We are told that Severus honored Marcus Aurelius the most of all the emperors, and gave both his sons the name Antoninus in his honor. Severus was Roman in his citizenship and in his maternal ancestry. His mother Fulvia Pia was descended from a noble Fulvia family from central Italy who were mixed with the African Plautii family. Julia Domna, Syrian Empress, 2007 26p. Severus had black on both sides of his family. Historia tells us that his clothing was of the plainest, was fond of his native beans, liked wine at times, and often went without meat. In person he was large and handsome. His beard was long, his hair was grey and curly, his face was such as to inspire respect. His voice was clear but retained an African accent even to his old age. Historia Augusta, The Life of Severus, 19, 7-9. When he died, he was buried in the tomb of his hero Marcus Aurelius Caracalla. Severus left two sons, Lucius Antoninus Bassianus, later called Caracalla, and Publius Septimius Getae. According to Historia, Augusta Caracalla was respectful and of a soft disposition as a boy. As a man he became cunning, stern and arrogant. His brother, however, is described as very modest and was despised by his brother for this. After their father's death in 211 AD, he had the Praetorian Guard kill Getae based on a false accusation of conspiracy. After this he proceeded to have anyone he perceived as a rival killed. He then went on an expedition to the east and fought the Parthians. He was remembered for his brutality and was reputed to have had carnal relations with his mother. It is difficult to find a legacy positive enough to balance out the strange cruelty for which he became known. He did, however, build the Antonine Baths in Rome, which later architects claimed could not be duplicated in the manner of their unique design. He also had a beautiful street made in front of them. The name Caracalla came from a type of robe he made fashionable which came down to the heels. According to Encyclopaedia Britannica, he passed an edict in 212 giving all free people in the empire Roman citizenship. The Severan legacy. The history of the Severan dynasty can be used to judge the rigor of modern perceptions of the Romans. Let us take the Times article comparing President Obama to Severus as an example. A few more African Romans did make it to the higher echelons of the imperial government, in many cases members of the emperor's own family, or his wife's friends. It is difficult to accept this because, as we have seen, in the year of the 5 emperors most of the emperors were of African and black origins, and they were not from the family of Severus. We even have a context for this overrepresentation, the merit. First policy of Emperor Marcus Aurelius, who had Spanish heritage from the province most influenced by the Moors. Non-indigenous Romans would be more likely to succeed in such an environment. Let us look at more from the same article, but on the wider view, it was not so much that his race did not matter, but that the Roman upper class and the Roman media made sure that it simply was not seen. We do not know for certain whether or not Septimius Severus was black. That is itself significant. One historian, writing 300 years after his lifetime, claimed that he was dark, and one or two portrait statues appear to show him with African features. But the vast majority of images that survive make him look like any other Roman emperor before him, his whiteness overemphasized by the shiny white marble in which he was so often portrayed. This was not a black man claiming the imperial throne for himself. This was the Roman imperial machine turning a man of color into an emperor more or less indistinguishable from all his predecessors. The machine was making sure that race did not show. http://dons_life/dons_life/11//Barack-Obama-html. White marble was a standard prestige material used for the depiction of emperors. There was no reason not to depict Severus with the same material. That author is more along the right lines when he suggests the images of emperors were somewhat standardized. Romans had a respect for the European facial shape, and this is what tends to be reproduced in the sculptures of emperors. They also had a respect for curly hair, so they did not hesitate to show this characteristic. The result was that when an emperor was of African descent, this would be the most likely characteristic they would show. On the point of this was not a black man claiming the imperial throne for himself. Again, we have to disagree with that author. When Severus came to the throne, the amount of killing of rivals and potential rivals that took place is unlikely to have happened if he was not in ultimate control. As for being called black, we say that Severus was an emperor of black origins or African origins. Did he see himself as having any affinity with those of Moorish appearance? The passage below, which is almost never quoted by black historical researchers, raises the question. Just as he was wondering what omen would present itself, an Ethiopian soldier, who was famous among buffoons and always a notable steer, met him with a garland of cypress boughs. And when Severus in a rage ordered that the man be removed from his sight, troubled as he was by the man's ominous color and the ominous nature of the garland, the Ethiopian by way of jest cried, "It is said, you have been all things, you have conquered all things, now, O conqueror, be a god." Life of Septimius Severus, 22, 4-6. http://Thayer/Foreign/Historia_Septimius_Severus*html. Before reaching any conclusions, we should remember the words of the Professor Emeritus of Classics at Harvard University. Some writers of the early Roman Empire put dark-skinned peoples Ethiopian, Egyptian, Garamantian in ill-omened contexts. An Ethiopian was reported to have met troops of Cassius and Brutus as they proceeded to battle, who were defeated and killed by the army of Octavian. At the time of Caligula's death, according to Suetonius, a Nocturnal performance was in rehearsal in which scenes from the lower world were enacted by Egyptians and Ethiopians. The biographer of Septimius Severus was continuing this tradition when he noted the presence of an Ethiopian in the vicinity of the emperor on the eve of his departure to the dark underworld, whose presiding deity was black. Before color prejudice, The Ancient View of Blacks by Frank M. Snowden, Harvard University Press 1991 p. 83-84. We take this to mean the later Roman author of Historia adds this element as a literary device to connect T. Severus with other Roman emperors of the past. The event is not to be taken as historical fact. Furthermore, it may also be that Severus' second wife, Julia Domna, was a black Syrian Arab, despite figure 66. There is considerable evidence that the early Hebrews and Arabs were of Moorish appearance. See The Ancient Black Hebrews and Arabs by Gert Muller and Anu Mbantu. Pomegranate Publishing 2013, and Unmistakably Black, Chapter 3. We are informed that the origin of the name lies in the Arabic Dumana, an archaic diminutive of Dimna, and etymologically connected with the color word of black. We do not know what she was called at home. Her sister Marsa's name is also Arab, thought to be from a verb marsa, walk with a swinging gait, and one of her daughters has the feminine version of the dynastic Soemus, another word connoting blackness. Domna's sister Marsa had a daughter Soemias, who was mother to Elagabalus, born in about 203 to 204. Julia Domna, Syrian Empress by Barbara Levick, Routledge 2007 p. 18-19. Severus' choice of wife can be seen as evidence of black self-identification, given the earlier noting that people are more likely to pair with individuals of a similar appearance or origin. Elagabalus later became the first Arab Roman emperor for 2 years. His mother, judging by the name and region of origin, was black. Figure 60 Emperor Severus Septimius. Figure 61 Severus Septimius in typical royal garb. Figure 62 also Emperor Severus Septimius. Figure Re 63 Statuettes of wrestlers. The one on the right is discussed as possibly being Severus Septimius. Figure 64 Emperor Severus Septimius in profile. Figure 65 Coin struck by Severus Septimius. Profile and hair similar to Didius Julianus. Figure 66 Severus, Julia Domna, and Caracalla. Figure 67 Emperor Caracalla, son of Severus. Figure 68 Emperor Caracalla. Figure 69 Emperor Caracalla. Figure 70 Emperor Caracalla. Figure 71 thought to be Emperor Caracalla depicted as a charioteer. Conclusion. The importance of the Severan busts is that they provide excellent comparison between Roman emperors of suspected black ancestry, like Titus, and ones known to have had black ancestry, like Severus. All the emperors suspected of having black ancestry are depicted with hair like Severus and other prominent Romans of known African extraction. This tilts the balance in favor of Titus, Domitian, Marcus Aurelius and Lucius Verus having black ancestry. The reign of Marcus Aurelius is instructive. We find that this emperor was claimed by the Roman records to have promoted on merit. We also find that the later prominent Africans of part Roman heritage such as Julianus, Albinus, Severus, and even Letus were Aurelian protégés. Not only do busts of Aurelian resemble, in hair and beard, the African semi-Moors, but we also learn of this emperor's paternal roots in Baetica, the Spanish province closest to the Moors and which was often invaded by them. The only other royal with paternal roots in a non-African land of black ancestry, Etruria was the mother of Emperor Titus and Domitian, the former of whose busts show similarity with those of the Africans. It shows that even at this late stage, individuals could still be found in Etruria with visible black ancestry. Conclusion. The study of the black origins of civilization in Italy is a wonderful illustration of the contribution made by people of African appearance to progress in the arts and sciences not just in Africa and Asia but also in Europe, a continent not known for its dark inhabitants. It is also a clear illustration of the various stages of losing power which a people undergo. We discovered Etruscans of Moorish and semi-Moorish appearance living in Etruria and ruling in Rome the 6th and 5th centuries BC. We then found them gradually losing power as an ethnic group in the 5th and 4th centuries BC until they were absorbed into the Roman Empire. We then come across Etrurian Latin semi-Moorish individuals who still managed to wield power in Rome in the 1st and 2nd centuries AD. This, however, was done in a setting of European cultural norms. The sculptures of the time make that quite clear, as does the Roman attitude towards Africa. There were no more powerful independent African nations with which Rome was in direct contact. Such a situation could only result in a more negative view of Africans than was the case during the Greek domination. All was not completely over, however. The story of the Moors of Africa bridges the Roman period and the Renaissance in Europe, on the one hand, and the Mayfair in Africa, on the other. See our website, http://www.pome-granite.org/. Like our Facebook page, https://www.facebook.com/pomegranate publishing. Other titles from the Pomegranate Library include http://www.amazon.com/racial-unity-egyptians-ebook/dp/b000GRFX2b6/ That face proves, beyond all reasonable doubt, the ancient Egyptians were black. Great by http://black-origins-ancient-civilization-ebook/dp/b00/. We founded their first civilization. Great by http://the-black-madonna-christ-ebook/dp/b00D1yep62/. Why was it so important to change the color from black to white? Great by http://the-black-goddess-bible-ebook/dp/b00D9vgopk. Learn about the Afro-Canaanites and the Eur-O-Canaanites. Great by http://unmistakably-black-sculpture-civilization-ebook/dp/b00B1W0E/. Sculptures and paintings from the world's oldest civilization are unmistakably black. Great by http://www.amazon.com/black-sculpture-civilization-ebook/dp/b00C9RH8p2/. The Anunnaki were the same color as the ancient Nubians. They kept that one quite great by http://unmistakably-black-sculpture-civilization-ebook/dp/b003b6y7y/. The first European civilization was unmistakably black. Tell a racist. Great by http://www.amazon.com/unmistakably-black-sculpture-mosaics-ebook/dp/b006f1y7a/. The Moorish image on the cover below is of a Roman god. He was more than a man. Great by http://www.amazon.com/unmistakably-black-sculpture-civilization-ebook/dp/b00682v7a/. White Persians used to curl their hair in imitation of black Persians. How times have changed. Great by http://www.amazon.com/unmistakably-black-sculpture-paintings-ebook/dp/b006ac/hw/. We are the indigenous people of everywhere. Great by http://the-ancient-black-arabs-ebook/dp/b00bt1eroi/. The ancient Arabs did not resemble Saddam Hussein. Discover what the ancient sources say. Great by http://ancient-black-hebrews-gert-mullah-ebook/dp/b00kmsg/. If you were told the ancient Hebrews looked like Charlton Heston, you were lied to. Great by http://the-blackheads-africans-mesopotamia-ebook/dp/b00bpsg/. Mesopotamia is the only alternative to an African origin of civilization. Oh wait, that's African too. Great by http://afro-hair-ancient-egyptians-ebook/dp/b00bnuu51a/. The contentious matter of Egyptian hair has now been laid to rest. Great by http://www.amazon.com/eden-biblical-garden-discovered-ebook/dp/b0063i5wem/. For those who want to avoid an African origin of humanity, the Bible is assumed to be a safe refuge. False assumption. East Africa is the Garden of Eden and the land of Punt. Every temple of the ancient Egyptian, Greek and Roman world was intended to be a microcosm of Ethiopia. Learn about the sacred longitude and the source of biblical miracles. Great by http://origins-egyptian-predynastic-civilization-ebook/dp/b00bev63s/. Osiris, Horus, Amun, Hathor and the major Egyptian deities were all from the far south. Great by http://www.amazon.com/african-origin-ancient-egyptians-ebook/b00/so/. The ancient Egyptians knew that the world was round. Great by http://www.amazon.com/african-rulers-medieval-yemen-ebook/b0079sgr4/. http://www.amazon.com/african-rulers-medieval-yemen-volume/dp//14782381000/. What is more impressive, to become a king having come from a long line of kings, or to become a king having come from a long line of the enslaved? Great by http://black-summa-physical-evidence-ebook/b00bk9x7sc/. http://black-summa-physical-evidence-part-/dp//14826394440/. Ancient Egypt was black. Now ancient Sumer is shown to have been two, using CSI level of proof. The racist is fast running out of civilizations. Great by http://black-summa-physical-evidence-ebook/b00c1sky9g/. http://black-summa-physical-evidence-part-forward/dp//14826478344/http://black-summa-african-civilization-ebook/b009mrlv//. http://www.amazon.com/black-summa-african-origins-civilization-dp//14800652855/. For those who want to avoid an African origin of civilization, Sumer, in southern Iraq, has been a safe alternative. Not anymore. The last hiding place has been taken. Great by http://the-ancient-black-hebrews-arabs/dp//14903392221/. Get the paperback version of the Ancient Black Hebrews and Arabs, together in one book. Definitely one for the library. Great by http://black-madonna-christ-goddess-bible/dp//14912128888/. Also get the Black Madonna and the Black God and Goddess of the Bible in one paperback with beautiful color pictures. Definitely one for the library. Great by http://unmistakably-black-sculpture-paintings-civilizations/dp//14903197433/. The world's first civilizations were unmistakably black. See the proof in 140 color pictures in one paperback. Definitely one for the library. Great by